Oh, hello, Primary 4. Now let's move to Lesson 2 in Concept 2, about fuel. Okay, that's part 1 of Lesson 2, and now we are going to classify the sources of energy or the fuels that we use into two sources of energy, or we have two main sources of energy on the earth. They are the renewable sources of energy and the non-renewable sources of energy. Okay, if I say renewable, so we can make this source again, or we can find it again, or can replace it again. So the renewable sources of energy, they are natural materials that can be replaced after using it. So after using these sources of energy, we can replace it or turn it back again. So they cannot run out, as they can be replaced after consumed. What about the non-renewable resources? Non-renewable, so they run out after using or consuming them, so we cannot bring them back again. And they are natural materials also, but they are used as a rate faster than they can be replaced. So we use them very quickly that we don't have the time to replace them or make them fast as using them or consuming them. Let's get some examples to make it clear. The renewable resources of energy, we said, they are the sources that cannot run out, like the water, the solar energy, the wind energy. They cannot run out, so they are called renewable sources of energy. We cannot open our eyes in a day without finding the sun or the solar energy, right? Excellent. So the solar energy cannot run out, so it can be replaced every day. So it's renewable source of energy. And now let's move to the non-renewable sources of energy. They are the natural materials that are used as a rate faster than they can be replaced. So they take a very long time to be replaced, and we use them so fast so they can run out, like the coal, natural gas that we use in our homes, the gasoline that comes out from the oil, and the petroleum. The petroleum is the same as the oil. Okay, so the coal, natural gas, gasoline, and petroleum, if we use them so fast, but they take so long time to be replaced or to be formed again. And we are going in this lesson to talk about how the coal and the petroleum or the oil are formed on the earth. Okay. And now let's move to the types of fuels itself. We have two main types of fuel: the biofuel and the fossil fuel. The biofuel, it's a type of fuel made from plants that can be planted. So the biofuel, it comes from the plants that can be found, or the living plants on the earth. Okay. But the fossil fuels, it's a type of fuel that made from the dead plants and animals. They died and decomposed or broken down for long time. So the fossil fuel takes very long time to be created or to be formed again, but the biofuel can be replaced very quickly because it's made from plants that can be planted. So, for example, on the biofuel, the wood, it's the oldest fuel in the world. So, the first fuel that we know in the world is the wood. When we take a piece of wood, a piece of a trunk of a tree, and burn it, this produces thermal energy, so it's a type of fuel. That's called the biofuel. And we can replace it because we can replant a very large amount of plants on the earth again, so it can be replaced. Number 2, the charcoal. The charcoal, it's made from the wood. When we take this part of wood and put it in our factory, with sometimes we take the water from the wood, or absorb the water from the wood and make it something like it's more solidified, and that's called the charcoal. Okay, so the charcoal comes from the fresh wood, so it's also the biofuel. And some types of plants, as the grass, corn, and wood chips, they are used to make liquid fuels. So the biofuels, comes from the wood, the charcoal, and the liquid fuels that comes from the grass, corn, and wood chips. Okay, so they are renewable sources of energy. They can be replaced because the biofuel is made from the is made from the plants that can be planted every day. And now let's move the fossil fuel. The fossil fuel, we said it's a type of fuel that made from plants and animals that died and decomposed for a long time. So it takes long time to be formed, like the oil and natural gas. They are formed when the marine animals were decomposed. So inside the sea or the ocean, when the marine animals, or when the animals that live inside the sea or the ocean, when they die and decomposed or broken down into smaller pieces for very, very long time, after this long time they form oil and the natural gas. And also the coal, but comes from the remains of dead living organisms, but the dead plants. So when the plants die and they decompose, they produce or they form coal. When the animals, especially the marine animals, die and decompose, after decomposing, they form or give me oil and natural gas. So the fossil fuels come from, excellent, the dead living organisms, but the biofuel comes from the living organisms that can be replaced, like the plants. So the fossil fuel is non-renewable source of energy because it takes very long time to be formed and we consume it so fast. And now let's talk about the conservation, or how can we save the fuel, any type of fuel on the earth. Firstly, the conservation of biofuel. To use the wood as a source of energy, we have to cut down the trees, right? But if we cut it down a large amount of trees in the same time, the trees will be very, very little in number, less in number. So this makes something called deforestation, when the number of the trees decreases. Okay, so we should rationalize or decrease or save the cutting of the trees, and this, how can we conserve the biofuel? And how can we conserve the fossil fuel? We should find alternative resources of fossil fuels, or some types, different types of fossil fuels, as they are consumed so fast then they are formed. Okay, that's all for this part of the lesson, and let's move to part 2.